Welcome back to the APSCC webinar series. I'm Christopher Slaughter. Today, our Regional Operators Roundtable session. The Impact of Industry 4.0 is the title. We're delighted to have today's presentation co-sponsored by APSCC and MEASAT, all three of whom are featured on the panel. Joining us today as the moderator for today and the leader of the discussion, Jose de Rosario from NSR, Northern Skies Research, should be well known to all of us. And on the panel, Nalso Ansiri from Tycom, the CEO of Tycom, the new CEO of Tycom. We're very happy to have what we think is among his earliest public appearances since that announcement was made. We also have Patrick French from ABS, who's also on our board of directors here at APSCC, as well as Ganendra Selvaraj from MEASAT, who'll be giving us a perspective from Malaysia, and Jacques-Samuel Prolon from Pacific. So please take it away, Jose.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Jose de Rosario. I am a consultant at NSR, and I will be your moderator for today's session, Satellite Operators Roundtable, Impact of Industry 4.0. By way of background, Industry 4.0 is characterized by rapid changes brought about by advanced technologies that are reshaping infrastructure, business models, and value propositions. Industry 4.0 is generally attributed for developments in artificial intelligence, IoT, cloud computing and analytics, machine learning, and digital transformation overall. The satellite industry has been evolving at a rapid pace as well, never before seen in its history, and we are at Space 3.0 or Satellite 3.0. The entrance of HTS, non-geo constellations, vertical integration, a series of mergers and acquisitions, and other key market developments are positioning the industry for high growth over the short to medium term. The competitive landscape is likewise changing, driven largely by growing players and so-called hyperscalers that will disrupt capacity supply, pricing, and other key elements of the marketplace. At the same time, demand dynamics are evolving as new technologies and capabilities are introduced. Today, we will be joined by a very distinguished group of panelists to discuss these trends, starting with Patrick French, Executive Vice President for Global Business Development at ABS, Ganendra Selvaraj, Associate Vice President for Sales at MEASAT, Niall Sumansiri, CEO or newly appointed CEO at Tycom. Congratulations, Niall. And finally, Jacques-Samuel Prolon, Executive Vice President, Corporate Development for Pacific. Welcome, gentlemen. So having said what has been said about Industry 4.0 and Space or Satellite 3.0, what does this all mean for satellite operators? Let's start with you, please, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Jose, and thank you, APSCC, for inviting ABS to join this webinar. I think very briefly, it's really the Industry 4.0, for me, really translates into what is known as the innovator's dilemma. So I think as the regional, national satellite operators, probably we would admit to ourselves that we're more of the incumbent position. And then Industry 4.0 and all the other changes in the industry, I think the challenge before us is how do we adjust to survive and thrive in this new environment? Or if we fail to, what happens to us as companies? I think that's the number one focus for all of us on the panel.
Excellent. So innovation is key. Niall, do you agree with that?
Yes. I'd just like to add that basically right now, everybody's going through some rapid changes, both in the demand side and also on the technology disruption side. So there are a lot of moving parts, and the challenge for regional satellite operators is recognizing the threats and also recognizing the opportunities that come out of all these changes. Because I truly believe that with all these moving parts and all these changes, we can find creative business models which can be the niche for each of the satellite operator. Yeah, so I think that's an important area which we think that for us, we see it as an exciting time, and we look at opportunities that we can use our strengths to basically capture new revenue streams.
Great. All right. So innovator's dilemma for Patrick and looking for opportunities for you. Gan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, good day to you, Jose. Pleasure to be on these APSC webinars and all these familiar faces, Niall, Patrick, Jack, good to see you all. Now, at Miasat's side, yeah, I would tend to agree with Niall. You know, it is an exciting time, and we really see two things, really. Given that IR 4.0 is touted to create all these operational efficiencies and increase in productivity. So from a supply side, what we're really looking forward to is that improvement in satellite manufacturing technologies, because today we are at a 3-year satellite build cycle, give and take. And, you know, with those trickle-down effects of, you know, improvements in manufacturing, we'd like to see something a little shorter, and that will give us a better go-to-market time. And, you know, the ability to make those business decisions a lot faster. So that's definitely something we're looking forward to. And on the demand side, I think the key word I see there is growth, right? Because with IR 4.0, you have all these machine-to-machine communications that is being talked about. And industry reports suggest by 2025, about 30% of the global share of data traffic is going to be non-human. That's phenomenal. You know, today we are dealing with a whole bunch of video traffic, you know, and our networks are struggling to cope with that load. And we have to build up, we have to scale up and cope with this additional 30% more. And so in short, I think in Miasat's point of view, we see a huge positive impact to our industry.
Great, but you said 2025, that's we're almost 2022. It's 3 years to go. So we have to really, you know, walk or run faster to keep up. Thank you, Gan. Jacques, could be considered the new kid on the block here in Asia. What do you think of the landscape so far, and what does it mean for satellite or space 3.0 and industry 4.0?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I mean, with a new kid on the block, and we also native to internet and broadband. What I mean by that is we don't really need to pivot from broadcast to broadband, because we have, you know, really a pure play broadband. We have one satellite currently only doing broadband, and that's the way we've always positioned ourselves. So seeing more evolutions in the industry on additional ecosystems or services to be built on top of internet access just increases demand and creates more growth. So we really see that as an opportunity, and we see also that we can embrace the latest technological advancements on the manufacturing side to keep up with the increased demand and the increased traffic volumes and quality required by the customers. So that's really what we are planning to do and where we are focusing on.
Great. All right. So it's all about data, internet access, and I agree. Terrestrial traffic we're counting gigabytes in our industry. The industry is already at exabytes, petabytes. So yeah, so we can leverage that and be part of the value chain. But you mentioned that you're not on video, you went straight to data. ABS, Tycom, Miasat, they have a fairly lucrative video business. So with having said everything about space 3.0, satellite 3.0, industry 4.0, with your current lineup of business divisions and business shares, what are you going to go after in the next 3 years, as mentioned by Gan? When we look at industry 4.0, is it going to be 5G on a backhaul platform, cloud computing, competing with Amazon perhaps, network function virtualization, etc.? What are you going to go after as a roadmap ahead to leverage this growth? Patrick, let's start with you again first.
Sure, Jose. So I think when we look to the future, what we're really focusing on is trying to identify niches where ABS can bring a real strength to a market, or more likely than not, a partnership. So I think it's really understanding what partner opportunities are out there, whether they're with the larger players or some of the new entrants, and then trying to figure out how we can work together. The reason I say partnerships are more key than ever before is I believe that the old model of growth in our industry really doesn't work very well anymore. So, the classic build a new satellite, bigger satellite, more capacity, more coverages, and growing that way it's very hard to make business cases like that close these days. So in order to really, ultimately, when we say grow our businesses, that really means grow our revenues, right? I think we need to understand that those models are challenged, maybe not gone in all cases, but are challenged. And the way to address that is to find the right partnerships and the right niches, which might be a little bit different from each one of us on this panel, and really focusing on executing in that area. Again, it's not a particular market segment like the ones you suggested, it's just finding the one that fits with each of us.
Okay, and the key to that would be partnerships. Is this new for ABS, or you've been doing it for a while and just focus more in the future?
I think everyone's been talking about partnerships forever. I mean, it's not like partnerships are new in our industry. ABS has existing Condosat partners, which date back a long time. But again, I think the issue is getting those partnerships done and working and actually commercially viable, given all the changes in the industry, is even more challenging than ever, because the basic business models of how do you launch and monetize a satellite are, again, rapidly changing with a lot of uncertainty. So partnerships are long understood as a viable way forward, but making them workable and executable and generating revenues for all the the partners involved is a big challenge. It's not easy.
Great. All right, Niall, same question. Are you going to go after specific applications like 5G, cloud computing, etc.? Or is it the same with Patrick? It's really putting in the partnerships to enable all these business cases to succeed.
All right. Yeah. I think in general we're not after any specific niche areas, but I can say that in general we want to focus a lot more of our business on end-to-end sort of managed services and smart solutions, and also expanding it not only to data type of services and satellite communications services, but we're also looking beyond in the realms of not only satellite but space and airborne vehicles. For example, we are doing some initiatives to provide analytics using Earth observation satellites and providing solutions for agriculture sector. That's an example that we are doing. So we're trying to expand not only in satellite communications, but anything that is satellite related or space related. But the ultimate goal for us is to create solutions out of the competencies that we have coming from the satellite communications side, and try to expand and leverage that to new opportunities, because we think that for us just leasing transponders is probably not the sustainable business model for the company. So we need to create more value, and the solutions and managed services is something that we're focusing more and more on.
Interesting that you're going to delve into EO as well. So
Yes.
I guess going forward, you're not going to be a SATCOM company, you're going to be a space company.
Yes, correct. Just to add, because it's in the past we used to segregate broadband and broadcast businesses, right? And right now it sort of becomes a bit of a blur, right, between broadband and broadcast, as Jacques alluded to. So I think data more the key. So data, leasing data pipes through satellites is our fundamental business, obviously. But what we do with the data could also be a part of the business as well, that we think is adds more value, and it's an opportunity for growth in those areas, because it's not a very mature stage at the moment, and there's still a lot of opportunities out there for someone who can find a solution.
Great. Okay. Final follow-up. So you mentioned that you have more managed services offering solutions as opposed to just traditional capacity leasing. I don't know if you can disclose it, but what's the breakout of your traditional business today and managed services, and where do you see that going forward? Is it like 50-50 today, going to 80-20?
Well, I think if we look at the traditional transponder leasing business, currently it is still predominantly where our revenues and profits come from. We have the traditional value-added services that other satellite operators have, such as the uplinking and downlinking and the gateway services. So we can still classify those as traditional value-added services. But for example, in Australia right now, we are providing managed services to NBN Co. To manage their backend services through the NBN satellite. So we don't actually own the satellite, but we have we're running the service for them to optimize their network and manage the efficiency of the network for them. So that's one case that we want to try to expand into further territories.
Great, interesting. Gan, what's Miasa's roadmap? Looking for applications like 5G cloud computing, or looking for partnerships and doing other things like EO, like Tyco?
Good question. And really, first and foremost, it always is and always will be, the key is what the customer dictates, right? And to us, I think what we are trying to do over the last few years, especially, is put our ears to the ground and try to make sure we understand what the customers are asking for. And through that, is where we have developed our own retail broadband platform called Connect Me in Malaysia, to really specifically address these sort of needs, where one part of our business is still leveraging on our existing partners who have strengths in specific markets and capabilities, and that's all good. And there's another part where Connect Me has a vertically integrated platform, right, so that we can go right to the end to meet end customers who have very, very specific needs, and also at the same time offer this additional toolbox, right? This additional toolbox to our customers, where we go ahead and innovate and make sure the satellite space works for them, and they get to capture the end customers' needs. I think that part of it's really important. So, it's a question of us making this shift where let's not talk about satellites being dumb pipes anymore. It's more than that. We need to go end to end. We need to be part of the NFV conversation. We have to be part of the 5G standards. It's more of that, and to take these solutions from these standards, of course, based on these standards, take these solutions to the customers, right? So that we address some of the asks. And we see this, right? The asks are seamless networks, access to the cloud, and they bandy around this word called IoT and say we want IoT. It's not the same for every customer. And that means working with multiple partners, figuring out what's the right solution for that particular customer, and building those solutions out and meeting the customer demand, right? So we're not looking at anything specific in short, but definitely we want to play in this role where we can capture and understand the customer's needs as close as possible to what they want.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. So, Jacques, I think it's been a consistent theme here. So can't sell megahertz or megabits anymore. You have to go down the value chain, provide solutions, look for partnerships. Same thing for Pacific, or something different?
Well, I mean, for us, we actually have two models, really, the way we operate currently. One is wholesale bandwidth, and that's where things like NFV, 5G are helpful, because they allow satellite to be just one component like the others for a telco delivering a service. So there's a few characteristics, but it integrates seamlessly for them to manage the best user experience for their customers. So here we come as wholesale. But what we do as well is more kind of a franchised retail, where we actually then offer the service or plans or an experience directly to end users through our partners, but we manage that experience ourselves. So we're not looking to go into value add niche and integrating other specialized application on top of that. We want to offer broadband and access to internet for these people and manage their experience the best we can. So that's what we focus on. And that includes, QoS, all the contention, shipping, quality management, all this type of stuff. So it's more, yeah, we still think that internet is a killer app, and other partners can do other things on top of it if they wish, just a connectivity or IoT and so on. But we really believe, especially in the developing countries, there's a lot of demand there, and if you are able to provide the right experience, even if people don't have much money, they will get value for it, and you will tap in those markets.
Great. All right. Well, I can certainly adhere to that, because you're here in the Philippines where I am, and I know that your salespeople are very, very aggressive and very active here. Okay, so I think no big secret, it's fairly consistent across your companies. Go for data, go for partnerships, move down the value chain, solutions based as opposed to just selling bits and hertz. And to some shape or form, you're competing with each other. But when we talk about Industry 4.0 or Space 3.0, the big capabilities, the big announcements have come from global operators, the big four, as they say, Intelsat, Telesat, SES, Eutelsat, and then we've got Viasat buying up Inmarsat. Then you've got SpaceX with Starlink and Kuiper through Amazon. These are the Goliaths of the industry. So are you pretty much facing a David versus Goliath scenario? And if so, what and how do you respond to this? Patrick, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, sure, Jose. So, it's true that the industry, especially the larger players, are very much focused on what's typically called a multi-orbit strategy, right? Which for me is just language for what their growth strategy is. In the past, the growth strategy for everyone was bigger satellites, expanding more coverage, entering different markets. Now the growth strategy is multi-orbit. But obviously not everyone can have a GEO and LEO constellation combined. So I think for, again, regional operators, the challenge is sort of a David Goliath, but I would say identifying where the Goliaths might have some Achilles heels, to use a different reference, and then you have a choice. You can either try to compete based on what you see as the Achilles heel, or again, tying in the partnership aspect, you can go to them and say, look, we think you have a particular weakness here. Maybe you work with us and together we can all be stronger. For example, one area where I think the Goliaths do have challenges is market access and local knowledge. Sure, it's easy to say we're going to do a global global LEO network, but the challenges of getting into individual markets. Forget China and India. They're important markets, what they're trying to get into, but even just the challenges of getting into the Philippines, into Malaysia, into Thailand is not easy from a regulatory and local access knowledge. And if you look at areas like that, I think that is a potential area where there's real possibilities that can be explored.
Excellent. Okay. When you pick a partner, what are the criteria by which, so for instance, if you take SpaceX or Kuiper or OneWeb, Telesat, I'm not asking you to pick one now, but in terms of what's the criteria for picking the right one? What's your strategy there?
Ultimately, again, this is kind of business 101, but it has to make commercial financial sense for both partners. We have had experiences in discussing with partners where, especially with a larger partner, there's kind of a natural bias for the larger partner to want to dominate and take most of the benefit for themselves. I think any sort of partnership that's going to work and work long term has to give each side a fair share of whatever is the benefits of that partnership, and has to be combined. It has to be something that will work going forward long term. It's not something, for example, just short. Ultimately, those are the type of partnerships that are going to work out, and I think are what we're focused on is commercially viable, long term, and make sense in a fairness level for both partners involved.
A fair Goliath is what you're looking for. Great. All right, Niall, what do you think? How do you deal with Goliath?
Yeah, I think, well, I was thinking about this, and it's actually maybe not that much different from what we face in the past. We have global players before the SpaceX's came, right? So in the days before the LEO constellation, we had global players, and I think we had these sort of conversations, right? Where how if the global players with their economies of scale, 50 satellites beaming all around the world, providing global services, it's not basically any different from what we have now, but we have different players with different technologies, right? But you see in the past, they were not able to dominate the whole world, even though they have a global service. So I also feel the same way that even with the new LEO constellations and unlimited funds for R&D and technology breakthroughs, they have that. But at the same time, I think they also have the challenge of providing services to 200 countries at the same time, right? So what they will need to do, they're ultimately limited by how they want to roll this out. And so they would have to pick and choose the markets that are easiest, the low-hanging fruit for them, I would assume, right? And leave the hardest ones later, right? So it's not a world domination, I don't think, at the beginning. And looking at the past, it wasn't a world domination. We were able to stand on our own 2 feet in the region and find our niche. So it's a matter of what Patrick was saying is playing on our strengths, that being very knowledgeable locally, being what I used to term hyper local, and we also have regulations and cultures and things that are non-technical, that are natural barriers to entry, languages, everything that is and ways of doing business, and ways of and the partnerships and trust locally. And so imagine trying to scale and do all that in 200 countries at once, right? I think that may be a challenge for them. So we see it as an opportunity for us to work together with them and complement what we have, because I don't think it will be one or the other that serves all verticals in the world. It's not going to be, it's not a winners take all sort of approach. This is our view. We would like to work with them and work in a fair basis at the local level, right? So I think, but for the regional players to expand market-wise or market share-wise, and to try to eat into their to their market share, I think that's tough. But I think for us, we sort of have to use our home field advantage and make sure that we win in our home turf, and that that the home turf is ours, and we win in our home turf, and protect that at all costs, and work with them through using that model. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of your home turf, Niall, it's opening up. They want to level the playing field. Is that going to be more advantageous as you look at these big players for Telecom, or is it? So I hear you and Patrick saying it's really more of an opportunity rather than a threat if you can find the right, kind of business scheme to work with together. But with liberalization taking place in Thailand, does that challenge that proposition where SpaceX could say, or Kuiper could say, I can go in and bypass Telecom because it's easier to tap into that market now? What do you think?
Yes. Well, the regulation right now in Thailand allows for foreign satellite operators to come in to compete and provide services. But obviously there are details in the regulation. It's not just an open door, you freely come in. You need to have a local partner. You need to set up shop in Thailand, for example, and you need to be at least the operator that's providing the service has to be at least 51% locally owned company entity. So therefore, it's not 100% open. liberated market, but it is open, and we think that it's good. Having competition is okay with us because outside of Thailand we've always had to compete anyway. So we're not too worried about that. And on the flip side, it's an opportunity for us to use the new regulations to partner with other foreign satellite operators, and bring them in together with us and try to make something work. So we think of it, it's a more of an opportunity to expand the market.
Great. All right. Well gone. Patrick and Niall aren't scared of Goliath. They see him as an opportunity, or the Goliaths of different flavors. What do you think? Do you agree from Mayasat's point of view and from Malaysia's point of view?
Definitely, Jose. I mean, I think this notion of David versus Goliath, one winner, one loser, I think those concepts don't really apply anymore. I rather see, and I think I will see, David and Goliath sitting down having a cup of tea, discussing what their strengths are and deciding how they can attack the market together, right? I agree with Patrick and now that's probably more likely. And there are parallels to that in the broadcast space, actually. You would be forgiven if a couple of years ago you thought that OTT players would wipe out our traditional broadcasters. But today you find that many are working hand in hand, and these OTT bouquets are now sitting inside traditional broadcasters' content offerings, right? So what's happened there? Basically, these broadcasters have that tremendous in-country knowledge, as Niall put it, that hyper-local capability, right, and the distribution strength. And we can draw parallels on that with Connect Me as well in Malaysia, where today, actually, by the year end, Connect Me is actually Mayasat's second largest driver of revenue after DTH. And the reason for that is really we've built a strong distribution network over the rural areas. And we've been helping to unlock that rural divide with broadband. And no one else has been willing to do that, with us going in commercially to do it with that strong distribution network. I'm sure one of these Goliaths will look at it and say that's a pretty valuable skill you have there. And let's see how we could look at some of these areas, like multi-orbit strategies, and unlock future value, right, from those customers, and unlock other new business cases by having this real-time versus non-real-time data being catered for in both these orbits, right? So I certainly see a lot more cooperation rather than competition, especially in specific markets, and especially so in Asia.
Great. Okay. So same with Niall. The way to get Goliath to sit down and have tea with you is you're promising market access. What about Jack from Pacific? Again, you seem to be the new quote unquote kid on the block. You do have market access to several countries already, including the Philippines. How do you deal with Goliath, and how do you make him sit down with you?
Well, I mean, what I find really interesting talking about David and Goliath is people say, oh, that's a terrible predicament. What people always forget is actually David won. And what's even in the story, so we love that story. We love the analogy, actually. Yes, we are David, no problem. And also, the reason why David won is really about being more agile, being nimble, able to focus and have a strategy, and compared to just using brute force. And especially when you come to Asia, that's very, very important. You can't come and apply a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't work. Even for us currently. So we say Pacific Island, but our two biggest markets are Indonesia and Philippines, and they're completely different. Indonesia, we've sold a huge amount of bandwidth to the government in one go to connect 2,500 sites, and it's very highly centralized. But it takes strong relationships with local partners to access the government over there. In Philippines, it's completely different. All of the money goes to the local district, and each of them buy individually, and then we have a network of resellers selling there. So yeah, there's two things, right? You can't have a one-size-fits-all, and really the importance of the distribution and the value chain of those partnerships that you build. So market knowledge and the people on the ground and these relationships that you are building there. And I guess for should we be scared of the Goliath? I mean, they have Achilles' heels, as Patrick said. The fact they are global is a benefit, but at the same time, it's a huge amount of capex, and you need to sell everywhere at once. If you don't, then your bandwidth is actually not less expensive, right? And for us, we have the advantage of being still focused on the region which sees the largest amount of growth and untapped demand. Is the way we see it. So I'd rather be serving that than trying to serve everywhere at the same time.
Okay, so if I'm hearing the group correctly, Niall, Patrick, and Gan would see an opportunity and partner with them. And if I'm hearing you correctly, Jack, we're gonna beat the Goliaths. Is that correct?
No, I think there's room for everyone actually. Like the other thing about these global players, they have a large amount of bandwidth, but it's spread all over the place. So even if you look over, like let's say into Indonesia, the amount of bandwidth they will bring over a single country of that type of size is not more than what Satria the government is doing by itself in Indonesia. But still, the demand is maybe 10 times that, or more than that. So yeah, I guess they would have their strengths, but I think there's room for everyone. We don't really see with the LEOs, the multi-orbit, not really for what we do. Could there be with other HTS comparable? We're always happy to talk about strategic partnership and way to win-win solutions, as Gan was saying. The condition being that both parties need to benefit, and we're very open for all of that. But that's a condition. It needs to be not equal to equal, but more of a win-win scenarios.
Okay. Great. All right. So interesting topic with the Goliaths, with the likes of SpaceX and Kuiper, etc. So let's go to our region for a while. It's a very, if not the most fragmented region in terms of competition in the globe, and it's the biggest region. So Asia Pacific can be divided up into East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Pacific Ocean region. So lots of countries, lots of landmass, big oceans, etc. I'll start with you, Jack, because you're the new entrant. Seeing the market fragmentation and then coming in, do you see more players coming into Asia Pacific, so fragmentation will increase? Or as we've seen, if you look at Viasat, Inmarsat, the global players, they're consolidating. What's going to happen in Asia in your view, and what does that mean for your company specifically? Is there more fragmentation or more consolidation? Jack, please.
I think there will be more consolidation. I mean, it's an industry which has a very high barrier to entry, so I don't really think there will be more fragmentation or more players popping up, not from the operator side. Consolidation, there's a large amount of money currently on the market, whether it's for SPACs or others, as we see. So there's appetite for transactions to happen as well from that perspective. At the same time, there's some natural synergies. I think Inmarsat Viasat is quite a good one in terms of having it is a global access versus a very specific focus on some technology and all the aero mobility, obviously. I mean, those global companies coming in, they will probably look for how to speed up their access to certain markets. So that could be also an end goal from that perspective. So yes, I mean, we see more consolidation happening. Is it a good thing, bad thing? Does it always work? Well, I think we've seen in the industry it doesn't always work. I mean, Speedcast would be, prime example. When you integrate, you have to make sure the synergies that you sell on paper to your shareholders actually do eventuate, and they don't eventuate by themselves. All the issue about cultural fit, and so I think there will be more. Will they be successful? Some will, some won't. But let's see. It's exciting times.
Yeah. I agree. Fragmentation from the end user, your client's point of view, is great because they have a lot of choices, and pricing will go down and supply will go up. So, okay. Patrick, you're probably in the same boat as Pacific because you're a regional player, not a national player. What do you think of fragmentation and consolidation?
So, Jose, and I think we'll all agree, there's certainly more momentum than ever in the industry to look at consolidation, right? More people are thinking of it, more people are looking at the options. And, I can, off the top of my head, think of any number, quite a few number of fairly obvious partnerships that make industrial synergy, okay, in our industry, whether they're within Asia or around the world. That said, we've been talking for ages, and I think ultimately the one or two things which have prevented or been impediments to consolidation are just as strong and still in force today. Those being nationalistic political issues, and secondly, while there's a lot of industrial synergies you can think of, at the end of the day, consolidation only works if it makes financial sense and both parties feel that the valuation is fair and that the entity that comes on the other side of it is a stronger entity from a fiscal point of view. And again, given the challenges everyone's facing with revenues and pricing and debt burdens we carry and assets on our book, et cetera, it's really hard to get that financial commercial aspect correct so that so a deal will close. And frankly, on top of it, I can think of in the last 6 months at least 3 countries, if not more, that are looking at launching again new satellite projects. So, maybe you will find those opportunities where there'll be consolidation, not so much on the big side of the Inmarsat and Viasat world, but maybe at our level. But I'm seeing new entities also looking to come out. So ultimately, 3 years down the road, will there actually be fewer satellite operators or not? Hard to say.
Great. That's why our region is so interesting. Niall, from Thailand, now that the regulations are going to be changing, I suppose the obvious, if that's the right word, will be more players will come into Asia and maybe into Thailand. Is that a right prognosis, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, having more competition or players participating in countries such as Thailand that's opening up, I think that will happen. But your question whether there'll be new entrants coming into our business, I think that's highly unlikely because like as Jack was saying, it's a very high barrier to entry, and at the moment the financials don't look attractive enough for someone to jump in, right? So the reward it doesn't seem to be there as well. So having new entrants, I think that's highly unlikely. Consolidation historically in this part of the world, we always say no way, it's not going to happen because of being national, a lot of national players, and a lot of it is not driven by economics, but maybe by national security or politics. So that's never going to happen. But you never know, it might, because going into the future, I don't think we can draw from history, because the situation has changed a lot, and you might see some. But I think practically what you will see though is more joint ventures, maybe more partnerships, forming new companies to do something together, something like that, rather than merging the two companies or one taking over another company. So I think the more practical ways, you still retain the identity of your existing company, and at the same time, for new ventures, you go and do a joint venture with somebody else. I think that is more the likely case in the Asian scenario. Yeah.
Okay, a simplistic question. So if we take a look at Industry 4.0, and then we look at Space 3.0, what's better, to consolidate to be more fragmented in order for Space 3.0 and thus tap into Industry 4.0 to take place? Is consolidation better than fragmentation? We had a webinar where MU Space was part of the panel, and
Yes.
they want space capabilities within Thailand, and they want the government to support them. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think in terms of government support, I think to kickstart the space development in each country, I think that we are all for it. All players are for that. Whether consolidation creates efficiency and makes the business better or not, I'm not too sure about that, because I'm not sure if the game that we're playing now as regional players, if size matters that much. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't think it's a size. It's a matter of finding the right business case, the right business model, and sticking to that model. So scaling to a bigger size, I'm not too sure if that's the solution to the situation that we have at the moment, because no matter how much you scale, if you want economies of scale, you're not going to be as big as the global players, no matter what. So if you're not going to go big, like be the top three, then you have to go niche, right? But if you're somewhere in between, I think that's the spot that you don't want to be in, right? So you're not niche and you're not big enough, so you're sort of in no man's land. So I think for us, we concentrate on solutions, focus on our home market, our customer base that we have trust in for a long time, and then we try to create solutions and expand from there, right? Rather than trying to compete head on with the global players.
Asia seems to be the Wild West. Everything is in the mix, and there's consolidation, there's fragmentation, there's big companies merging together. But in the industry, we have small stats and a lot of funding, SPACs and everything in the mix. Gan, from Malaysia's point of view, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think that I was following this conversation. It's really interesting. We talk about IR 4.0 and Space 3.0, and here we are, satellite operators, and really in the communication space, really a subset of these areas, right? So I'm not so sure whether the consolidation would really happen the way we think it among satellite operators per se. The way the lines are blurring, where what's important to be provided to the customer, maybe that communications, maybe that space services. So much so that I think that consolidation may not be so lateral, if you will, but be more vertical in the sense that you'd find satellite operators, probably doing joint ventures and collaborations with solution providers and hardware providers. I think that's probably what I see moving forward, rather than just a pure consolidation among satellite operators. The trick here really is, I think even Niall pointed out, deciding for yourself where you stand. Are you planning to go big and everywhere, or are you satisfied with your niche? I think in Asia, many of us are quite comfortable in our niches, and I think the fact that we have that market know-how in Asia, we can deal with the cultural fragmentation in Asia, and we share a lot of common values as Asians. I think our view on consolidation will be quite different than how the global operators might perceive it, and therefore I think you will see a lot of different types of consolidation happening, and maybe before that, a lot more joint ventures and partnerships, I think. We at NEASA, I think, firmly believe in that partnership approach. We've been doing it for years. It's part of our mission to be aligned in a network of partners. So we're pretty sold on that idea of partnerships anyways, in any form. So we'll continue to keep doing that to move forward.
Great. Okay. All right. So no clear-cut trend. Industry 4.0, Space 3.0, consolidation will happen. Fragmentation will also happen. Partnership will happen. Many things in the mix. Patrick, you raised one point that caught my mind. So we have national governments supporting national players, and satellites are going to be launched where we have adequate supply. So we're seeing national space policies that would seem to favor local players. And at the same time, the same countries want market opening so that the local economy and end users benefit. So it's a mix of a space industrial policy, so to speak, where they want to boost local capabilities, but at the same time open the market for the benefit of enterprises and consumers. How do you see all these developments from your point of view? ABS being a more regional player. Does that make sense to you, or is it kind of confusing when you enter a certain country that has both ingredients? What do you think?
Oh, it's a huge challenge in our industry to deal with these. I think an interesting parallel, maybe not exactly mirroring our situation, but this also ties in to the consolidation question. Is you look around the world and all the airlines and all the national airlines all around the world, et cetera. You could say from a purely logical business perspective, there shouldn't be 300-400 different airlines. They should have consolidated long time ago, right? And you're still seeing new airlines being launched, just like you see new countries want to launch their own satellites. And again, why is that situation there? Well, it's what we've been talking about quite often during this webinar is different airlines serve different needs. There's the big major lines that fly around the globe, but then you have the smaller regional ones that really focus on, like regional operators, focusing on specific client sets, specific markets that they know and can serve well, right? So, it's no surprise to me that there is desire of some countries to want to launch their satellites, which might also conflict with a desire to bring more services to their countries and their citizens, in the sense of is it a pure open market, or do you want it to focus on the national satellite? Because as we all know, very often the countries who are talking about these national satellite projects are also talking about trying to push a lot of the domestic business onto those satellites. You've seen it over and over again. I think ultimately we can live and thrive still in these situations. We just have to take each effort in step and in measure, and understand that the markets will change and adjust our strategies in each region of the world. And frankly, in areas where we don't think we can compete, be willing to step back and refocus our efforts on areas where we do think we can compete.
Great. All right. I'll jump to Jack, because you're a regional player as well. Are you facing the same challenges and frustrations as Patrick is?
I mean, similar challenges for sure, frustrations. I'm not sure. In terms of protectionism, in some countries, yes, it happens for sure. What example do I have? Yeah, but again, from our perspective, we think we've got a model which has worked, which is working very well with Pacific One, which is not a huge satellite, but still the biggest over the region currently in terms of broadband. And we're just looking, we're not blind. We're seeing other hyperscalers, other people coming in. But we think that's, again, plenty of room to, our chosen path is to grow. We're currently raising large equity round for our second satellite. And we want to grow to do the same thing on a larger scale ourselves and with newer technology, and keep at the bleeding edge of the capabilities of the industry. And at the same time, if there's opportunities for partnership, we are very open to that. M&A, that could happen. I'm not saying no, but we are forging ahead with our own strategy and our own path currently. And we can select, especially with the future software-defined satellites, is great, because you can be over the region and pick and choose the countries where you're going to provide service. And if that changes over the next 5, 10, 15 years, as it will, then you can change that and you can readapt. It's something we don't have a specific one, but which provide, we think, a huge amount of additional strategic advantage with the current technology. So yeah, frustrations maybe, but then we just look elsewhere. There's plenty of other niche to be served, and that would be our strategy.
If you don't mind, I'd like to put you on the spot here, since we have Tycom and Mayasar on the panel. Malaysia, Tycom, in terms of regulatory market access, is it frustrating, okay, great?
Well, currently, we don't serve Thailand. We don't serve Malaysia either. We do have bandwidth on some of our Indonesian beams, which bleed over Malaysia. So we could have, but we don't have a teleport there. So it was not part of the business plan. And same thing with Thailand. We have a bit of Myanmar in our coverage with one of the beams, but not Thailand. Pacific 2 could be a different story, and we can talk about partnerships or otherwise compete, on our own merit there. But it's that would be a different story, depending on how the regulation involved. I think that's also one interesting point we didn't really mention about the constellations. When you have this type of regulatory hurdles, even if you put a gateway in the country, and a lot of in Asia, countries require a gateway in country. If you have inter-satellite link, how are the regulators going to be convinced that they can control the traffic? That's part of all these local challenges that you have to deal with. And same with the fact that most of those markets are cash economy. So all models based on subsidies of equipment and others with no credit rating put a lot of risk on your business plan as well. So yeah, but that's not the question you were asking about Thailand and Malaysia. Yeah, we're looking at it, and we can talk with our friends, or we'll have our own plans also in any case.
Great. All right, I'll let you guys speak offline. Okay, so Niall, going to Thailand. So same question. You've got a space industrial policy per se. Your country wants to open up, but it wants to support local capability. What do you think of that landscape? Does that make sense? Are there conflicting signals to the marketplace? What's your view?
So I think the regulations came out with the principle from the people that form the regulation is national security. I think they want competition, but at the same time they have to ensure that the data is terminated within country and that can be controlled. I think that's the fundamental. They don't mind competition, but the national security will always come first for Thailand and many countries in Asia Pacific, right? So hence, not only having the gateway in country, but you have to also prove that the ability to intercept the data in country and be able to control the data flow as well. I think that's important. And also, I think what they're trying to create in terms of the landscape is that they want to make sure that there's somebody who is going to be responsible for the service in country. So when I earlier mentioned that you need to have a local entity to represent you when providing service into Thailand, the reason for that is that the regulators will know who to go to if there are issues with the service, right? So if you have no office in the country, they don't know who to call, right? And they can't control the services that are being provided to the end users. So I think there's a logic behind the regulations that have come out, and I think it's just to create a fair, level playing field, and also be able to be responsible for the services that are provided, and also secure as well.
All right, so no bones about the regulatory environment. Looking forward to this emerging Thai landscape going forward, is what I gather.
Yes.
Great. All right, Gan, from Mayasat and Malaysia's point of view, what do you think of regulations and the government's thrust to support the local business as well as open up, business to other operators?
Well, as far as I can remember, for the longest time, Malaysia has had an open skies policy. So it's been very welcoming to foreign parties to come in and provide services. There are a lot of foreign operators operating in Malaysia today. And yes, there are some rules and regulations like Niall pointed out. Governments ultimately want to have somebody accountable for the services that they provide. And therefore, there may be some licensing requirements that are required. But apart from that, it's still a regime, I would say, that encourages competition. So, and we don't see it as a bad thing at all. I think competition is actually good, keeps us on our toes, keeps the customers happy in getting the best deal possible. So I think the way Malaysia is moving is still very positive. They are also revamping their space policies and will come up with the Space Act in the near future. So things there are looking vibrant and something that's going to foster a lot more competition as well as cooperation, I believe.
Okay, well, gentlemen, we're on top of the hour. So far, if I'm hearing the panel correctly, not really scared of the Goliaths, lots of opportunities more than threats with this new Space 3.0 or Industrial 4.0. Some challenges maybe with our market access, but it's also an opportunity to partner with you. Pricing supply will be in the mix. National space industrial policies will be in the mix. But overall, looking vibrant, looking dynamic, you will find your own niche. And we look forward to more business and more revenues from you. If I missed, and I'm sure I've missed key points, this is your closing statements. So please, what is your viewpoint on Space 3.0, Industry 4.0, your role in that ecosystem, and the way forward for your specific companies? Let's start with Jack with Pacific, please.
I think we see, as we said, all those evolution and changes as bringing additional focus and interest and demand in the industry. I think satellite is still a niche in the telecom market, so everything which makes it easier for us to integrate into larger players is a bonus. And as you said, we think we have a good model currently, and for us it's still based on internet access, not even really enterprise connectivity or networking. It's really the underlying broadband, providing broadband internet access to developing communities. And we are focused on keeping doing that and growing on a larger scale, while at the same time looking for collaboration opportunities. But we see, plenty of room in the market and a bright past and future ahead of us.
Excellent, thank you. Niall, your closing statement, please.
As I think when we started with this webinar, I think we all agree that it's exciting times for all of us. It's very dynamic, many changes going on. So we embrace these changes and think of it as opportunities, and it opens up newer opportunities, especially with the new Space Act that's coming up in Thailand and what they call the new space economy. This opens up a whole area of opportunities in the medium to long term, not only just to provide satellite communications. So, but in the shorter term, we will be providing more end-to-end managed services and strengthen our position in terms of our satellite portfolio. I think that's on the works with us as well, through partnerships. We totally embrace the partnership model, and in the medium to long term, we will look at the opportunities that the new space economy provides. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Niall. Gon, closing statement, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think Miasat echoes the same thoughts. We are very excited about the prospects of IR 4.0. I think to us, it means new growth. anchored on machine-to-machine comms. We're going to see new traffic categories, I guess, emerge. And, we talk about robotics, AI, and machine learning. That's just all going to increase traffic consumption. And by default, that's more growth for all of us. So we're excited about that. We're bullish about the future for our Asian operators. For us personally, we look at our growth story in ConnectMe, over 250,000 broadband connections to date. None yet are machine to machine, but if we are positioning ourselves right, I think there's more to capture. And we haven't even yet replicated this model regionally. So lots more for us to do. And we're excited to do that in partnership. But vertical integration, we think, is very key. And partnerships and vertical integration combined, I think that will be probably the recipe for us to address the opportunities here in IR 4.0.
Great. Thank you, Gon. And Patrick, you get the last word. Closing statement, please.
Yeah, so I think in terms of Industrial Revolution 4.0, Space 3.0, I mean, it's just symbolic for the constant change that we are facing of an industry. And there will be an Industrial Revolution 5.0 and a Space 4.0 and whatever. I think really when you look at things today, it's just learning as entities, especially generally incumbent entities, of how to deal with the change and be flexible and nimble to be able to find those partnerships, find those opportunities in order to grow your business. I would say probably at the moment, the pendulum in terms of momentum is swung way towards, say, a lot of discussion along, your hyperscalers, the LEO constellations. But ABS, we fundamentally believe that pendulum is going to swing back to a more balanced position, maybe not, fully to the other side of us classic geo players, but it will swing back to a more balanced position. And in that balanced position, it's what we've been talking about during this full hour. It's those partnerships of taking the advantage of strengths of each players to deliver the services that the clients on the ground need, irrespective of the technology or the scale of the company that's doing it. And I think that's ultimately where we'll end up, and why as a group we will be okay in the end, as long as we can accept that the change is there and adjust to it and profit by it.
Excellent, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much. And this panel of Davids, not scared of Goliath, but thank you so much for your insights. Good luck with your companies. Good luck with your future. What I've heard so far, it looks like you're all busy. Looking forward to leveraging the opportunities that Industry 4.0 presents and be part of Space 3.0. So thank you so much, gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you very much for that, Jose. Thank you very much, Niall, Patrick. Thank you, Gan. Thank you very much, Jacques. We really appreciate your time and your input and your insights and your perspectives on what's going on with the regional operators here in Asia Pacific. David's all taking on the Goliaths of the world. Really a good session, and thanks again for that. Also, thank you to the companies who supported it. Thank you, ABS. Thank you, Miasat. Thank you, Pacific. It's your ongoing support that makes the webinar series possible, that makes all of APSCC's activities possible. If you do want to find out more about the organization, please go to our website at apscc.or.kr. Headquartered in Seoul. It's a Korean domain name, so apscc.or.kr. You can find out more about joining the association, more about our overall activities, and about the association as a whole. Likewise, if you're interested in the webinar series, coming up next, we have the Global Satellite Operators Roundtable. But if you're interested in any of the subjects we've covered over the past 18 months or so, since the webinar series began last year, they're all online at APSCCsat.com, which is where you're currently watching this. Please do spread the word, encourage your friends and colleagues, your loved ones and your families to log in and register to enjoy the rest of the webinar series. Thank you very much again for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you next time here at the APSCC webinar series. Thanks.